What's going on, everybody? It's Davey from the 80s, and you are now entering the Cinema Chop Shop. So park your ass right there. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the like, the share, and the subscribe button. Also, if you check the link below, you'll see a Patreon account. You click it, you become a member. All you got to do is try and recommend movies and music and trailers for me to react to. Now, with that being said, we are here today with a series review. This Friday, the Amazon show called Them was released. And for those of you that are not familiar with it, it is a black horror series that to me reminds me of like Us and Get Out and Antebellum and also Lovecraft Country, right? So, but luckily, this show blows majority of the things out of the water, right? So, let's get into it. The show stars Deborah. I can't pronounce her last name, but I know her from Harriet, and in this show, her name is Lucky. She plays a wife. Ashley Thomas is Henry, her husband. Shahida Wright Joseph, the oldest daughter from Us. She plays Ruby on there. Melody Hurd plays Gracie, the young girl. And also you have Allison Pill, who I know from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Shout out to my wife for pointing that out. And on the show, she plays a woman by the name of Betty. Now, these are the central, 5 characters that we focus on majority of this show. Like, majority of the show follows these 5 characters. They all have story arcs, and the show is basically centered on them. So let's go into a quick synopsis of the show. The show is pretty simple. This is a black family that used to live in North Carolina, and after experiencing a traumatic event, moved to Los Angeles, relocating, the Great Migration, and they end up buying a house in East Compton. East Compton at the time was an all-white neighborhood, so you know that their arrival was not met with applause and like cheering and people jumping for joy. So because at the time it was still very racist, the people in that city basically were trying to find a way to get rid of this family that just moved onto their block because they didn't want black people to live there. All right, so this is a reality. These are things that really happen. These are really things that transpire. Now, also, with that, there also comes the element that there are some supernatural things going on that are tormenting this family, and we don't know the reason why. And this whole show is basically exploring and taking us down a journey of what is happening, why this is transpiring, and we luckily, at the conclusion of this series, we have a definitive answer of why this is happening, right? So let's get into it. Let's get into some of the pros. Every single character in this show does an amazing job of what they are supposed to be doing, right? The whole family, the Amory family, I believe, they're all really good. Every single character is amazing. They're believable. It's fun to watch. I don't feel like I'm being forced to like them. They're all really, really great characters. I enjoyed watching them, and they did an amazing job. Now, for Shahadi, the girl that played the oldest daughter on Us. Now, I know that when she first started off, she wasn't the greatest actress, right? She was young, she's still wet behind the ears, and she was still trying to figure it out. But she has took strides, and honestly, her role in this show was pretty damn good. I enjoyed it a lot. And another element of the show is that everybody has character arcs. So they all have problems that they have to overcome. That I'm not going to get into because it's going to spoil the idea of, the character arc. But everybody in this story has a character arc that they have to get over, a bridge that they got to get over, right? And we explore those things, which is another pro for this show because, man, they do a really good job at exploring it. That's all I'm going to say. I am very happy to say that this is a brand new addition to the black horror genre. We've been having a lot of these movies, and everybody has been trying to recreate the wheel because Jordan Peele released Get Out. And honestly, the movies that have followed Get Out and TV shows that have followed Get Out have not met that echelon, that top tier, that they haven't touched it in a while. To me, I'm happy to say that this show is finally setting us back on the right track. This show was amazing. It is a top tier black horror show. I loved every single second about this show. It was amazing, and I am so glad to say that this is another one of the new generation of black horror movies that I actually enjoyed immensely, like a lot. Like I said, the cast was amazing. Allison Pill made me hate her character. Allison Pill's character, she plays a racist white woman. And she is so damn believable in this show. It really makes you hate her. Every time she pops on the screen, you just want to throw something at her. Every time you see her pop up, you just want somebody to bop her in the face. It's the whole, you just hate her so damn much that you just want her to just die. And that's amazing to do because that means she embodied the character. She makes you hate her. And it's just this arrogant, snobbish attitude that she has that just makes you want to just shake the shit out of her. But alas, it's acting. She did an amazing job. She too has a character arc in the story. And she might, I feel like they hinted at some traumas that she might have had when she was younger. I don't want to get into it, but if you guys know what I'm talking about, go ahead and drop it in the comment section down below. Maybe my friend Derek at Movie Match is watching this show as well, so maybe we can do like a spoiler review for this TV series because this show needs to be watched. Saying it straight up. If I had to compare this TV series to anything, I would say that it is a black version of the Amityville Horror. That, to me, that is the very perfect example of how I can put it. It is the black Amityville Horror, and at times it has sprinkles of Last House on the Left, right? So those are, to me, those are really two good nods, or if I'm going to kind of compare it to something, those are some really great comparisons. Like that's some high praise. And honestly, when I was glancing around, I seen that this show had like a 5.5 out of 10. I honestly don't understand how this show got a 5.5. I think those are some people just being some haters. So another element that I liked about the show is that it deals a lot with trauma, the traumas of war, traumas of racism, trauma of loss. It deals with trauma all throughout the show, and it's basically showing this family trying to put the pieces back together after experiencing all of the things that they've endured. This family endures so much, and you kind of wonder why. Like, damn, dude, like, why is this family like why them? Like, they seem like such nice people. Why them? But then at the end, it makes sense because only a family that has endured this much trauma can make it through, right? So it was honestly the perfect family for this situation in order to overcome the obstacle or defeat the evil, right? This show also does a very good job at stringing together all the loose ends. Like I said earlier, every character in the show has a story arc, and it does a very good job at completing that story arc. Also, you're not left wondering, well, what the hell was that about, or what the hell was this about? They do a very good job at tying together all the loose ends. So there's a question that's asked. Basically everybody's gonna have a question at the beginning of the series, and that question is answered later on in the series in one of the future episodes. And then you also have this idea where it's like, well, who is this character? And then I think in episode 9 you are introduced to that character, his backstory, and why he is who he is, right? So this character, like I said, this show does a very good job at trying to tie in the loose ends, and I think it did that amazingly. So, also, the score of this show hits. The soundtrack hits, my boy. Like, every single song on here, it makes you feel something. It's like filled with oldies and older songs and things like that, and just nostalgia. It really feels so good. Like, at one point, I'm from like I grew up in like the late 80s, early 90s era. So like when I heard one of the songs, I know that this song is once you hear it, you're going to be like, what? Like, because you're going to think it's the hip hop song. You associate it with the hip hop song because the song is so well known. So once you're listening to it, you're like, wait, is that one or is it the original? And then it's the original. So you're just like, oh, okay, all right. Because I swear I thought, I bullshit you not, I really thought they was about to have my boy walking out to some Dr. Dre. I'm just keeping it a buck here. But that soundtrack hits, especially that James Brown song. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That James Brown song hits, no pun intended. Also, I have a little bit more bias on the show because it is based on my hometown, Los Angeles. So it was really cool to see that a show. Most of these shows, when they do things like that, they always ventured into the South. It's always in the South. All the racist stuff happens in the South. All of the supernatural stuff dealing with racism is in the South. South, 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 South. It was really cool to see that they actually ventured west, and then they talked about the racism that did transpire out here, because a lot of people think that New York and California were safe havens away from racism, but they were not. People still experience racism here, and the show does a really good job at putting the light on that situation. The finale of the show does a great job at concluding the story arc. Each character, like I said earlier, each character had their own story arc, and basically it is concluded by the end of the show. It was very satisfying. One thing I can't stand is when I watch a season finale and then I hate it, right? This show did a very good job at keeping the energy consistent and keeping everything consistent. The one thing that I didn't like about Lovecraft Country is that every episode felt like it was about something different. So the energy was just here and there and here and there and here and there. But this show did a very good job at just narrowing it down to one element and just telling a good story. I think each episode was written. I think each episode was written by a different person, but they did such a freaking good job at blending this together. It's like basically they wrote a story and they say, here, your turn, you pick the next chapter. And then the other person pins the, all right, your turn, you pin the next chapter. But all in all, it just turned out really amazing. And like I said, I was really, really happy to see that there was no loose ends. And the conclusion of the story is very satisfying. The horror elements of the show, which is why most of us are here, amazing. Amazing, right? They had the lady from the book, I can't remember her name. Also the man in the hat, he was really menacing as well. But the one character that I love the most, even though it was racist as shit, the tap dance man. The tap dance man was a very, very, very dope, interesting character. I liked him a lot. He came off creepy. And on top of that, he was just a very interesting character. Every time he jumped on the screen and had something to say, I felt like I just needed to listen to him. He just had a way about talking and a way about how he was just positioning himself and showing himself that you just felt the need to just like, you know what, I need to listen to everything he said. Every time the tap dance man was on the screen, I felt that he commanded the scene. I felt like I needed to listen to him, and everything about him was just alluring. Like I just felt just attachment to him, because he just was not attachment in that regard, but like he just was very commanding. His character was alluring, right? And also once the story arc concludes, like I said about these conclusion of these story arcs, you will understand what he represents with the main character Henry, right? So like I said, everything has a purpose, and this show makes sure that they let you know that it has a purpose. You're not left sitting there thinking, well, damn, that was stupid. Nah, everything has a purpose. A bit of a warning for some people, this show does focus on race and racial elements. So if that's not your cup of tea, you might not want to tune in. This show is a very hard watch for some, because it is going to deal with a lot of racism. But the thing is, these things actually happen. So because these things actually happen, you need to see it to understand these were the things that really went on, right? So if that's not your cup of tea, if I were you, I wouldn't tune in. But at the same time, you are missing out on a very magnificent show. The show does have a few disclaimer episodes, a couple of warning episodes, if you may. And honestly, I feel like those warnings at the beginning of the episodes, they were warranted. There are some really hard scenes to watch in this show, and if you make it through it, you kind of understand why. So yes, the warnings at the beginning of the episodes do warrant the warnings, because they're very hard to watch. But it's, like I said, it's necessary in order to understand the characters and why they are the way they are, right? The only con that I have for the show is that some of the makeup effects could have been better. Some of the makeup designs were lacking a little bit, but overall, it wasn't to the point where I felt like it was going to sink the ship. None of the makeup effects in the show were bad enough to the point where I would say that it was trash, right? Most of the makeup effects were all right. They were passable. There were some I felt like could have been better. I know there was a couple of CGI elements that I feel like could have been better, but at the same time, they did a very good job at creating a tall disproportioned woman. They did a really amazing job at that, and so like I said, I'm not trying to give away too much of the spoilers. So overall, if I have to give the show, man, so here on the Cinema Chop Shop, we grade movies in two ways. We grade TV shows as well in the same ways. Either one, you're going to get bodied and sent to the bowels of hell and nobody's ever going to hear from you again. Or you will be spared and ascended to the gates of heaven, and I will basically buy your product and put it in my huge library. And man, honestly, this show is obviously getting spared.
He ain't earned the death. He ain't earned the death at my hands. God's only man, spared by the butcher.
Yes, you heard it, folks. I am sparing this show. This show was amazing. If I had to give him a numerical score out of freaking 1 to 10, I'm giving it a 9. The show is amazing. The elements that it touches. I am so glad that we have another intense, memorable black horror show to actually watch and engage us, right? So kudos to them for doing it. I will look into the writer, I will look into the director, and hopefully that person will produce more products because this show was amazing. I wonder if it's going to become an anthology series. But anyway, also those beginning clips, man, they look so retro. I loved it. But anyway, so you are now exiting the Cinema Chop Shop. I hope you guys are having a magnificent weekend, and I am done with this show. So adios. And if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section down below. Adios.